A very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the second edition of CMO Week presented by ABP News. The changes we saw in 2020 will have far-reaching implications for many product categories in 2021. At CMO Week 2.0, through a series of panel discussions with marketing leaders, we will dive deep into several product segments that have undergone a sea of change and are tackling a new reality this year. To begin with, I would like to thank our sponsors, presenting partner ABP News and associate partner Shutterstock. On the panel, we have Mr. Abhinav Kumar, VP Product Marketing Paytm, Mr. Abhishek Shah, Head of Marketing Bharat Pay, Ms. Shalini Pillai Banerjee, Head of GPay and NBU Marketing Google, Mr. Udit Jain, Vice President and Head of Marketing Airtel Payments Bank. Now introducing you to the moderator of the session, Mr. Srikanth Khandekar, Co-founder and Director at afaqs. Once again, thank you everyone. Before we start, can we please have the AV?
न पाबंदी हो न कोई हद हो तो बस खुद बनाई सरहद हो। ये मुहिम है परतों में छिपे हर सच की तलाश की, सियासत पर रखी पैनी नजर और आंख की, खबरों की दुनिया में एक जिम्मेदार आवाज की, जुर्म और जुल्म के खिलाफ हर बेबस के लिए इंसाफ की। जब कोई हद नहीं इंसानियत के लिए जज्बात की, जब कोई हद नहीं खुशियों और ख्वाब की, तब कोई हद क्यों हो नए नजरिए और बदलाव की। उनके हदों के ताले नए सपनों को पाले, बांधे सबको एक धागे, आपको रखे आगे। एबीपी न्यूज।
Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Khandekar.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the session of CMO Week. You can hear some sound. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So it's very rare that I'm moderating a panel where it doesn't need an introduction. I think if we look at our own behavior as consumers, we all know just how dramatically each of us is making digital payments as compared to, say, a year back or 18 months ago. So I'm going to jump straight right into it. The only thing is that however much a market may boom, the marketer will always have challenges. The nature of the challenges may be different in a booming market as compared to another which is growing more moderately. So we've got some really great speakers today who can share their perspective on this. So I'm going to invite them. We could start alphabetically, in which case it would be Abhinav. I'm going to invite each of them to speak for 2 minutes each, describing or pointing out or highlighting an issue or issues that they think they would like to bring up. And I would request you to bring it from a marketing standpoint, so this is my request to you, that in the course of doing that, could you also highlight one striking aspect of change from a marketing standpoint in the last 12 months? Come, Abhinav, we can get started.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khandekar, and thank you AFQs and all your sponsors for organizing this discussion. So I would like to start with addressing the main the topic which we had for the discussion: how many apps the users will download. So for me, the answer is simple. They will download one app and where they will have everything, and that would be Paytm app. But then also we need to address this question. So we need to address this question in more, like we need to go deep and understand why people are downloading apps, why Fintech app or why any app, why people are downloading apps. Maybe a younger person would download 5 to 100 apps and an older person will download maybe 5 to 10 apps or 15 apps. So it will always depend on them. Why they are downloading is because they are all trying to solve something in their life. So our job is to give a service which will solve something, a part of your life, which will solve it. And so in this whole discussion of which app the user should download, so he will just assume, like he will see which apps are really helping his life, which is adding more value to his life, and then they will go on. So this is another initiative how we are trying to do, whereas we try all the different products, whereas you can see many of these as single listed, maybe a company which is offering one product. It can be it could become a feature within Paytm. So within Paytm, when we say you can solve a lot of problems, so there are different ways how we are solving problems. So in terms of amount of service which is available on Paytm, and in terms of innovation, which is not just coming from the main app developers, we also have to look at the ecosystem where the app development is also going on. So not just the bigger app developers which can go and list on the bigger app stores, and then those app stores, they restrict. There are some local rules by app stores, and so there are things which a lot of innovations are not coming to the people. So in this, Paytm again comes in. So it helps the user with multiple options. It also helps the developer, if who are innovating something new, we allow them to come on our mini app stores and offer more and more to the people. And so we eliminate the reason that you need to download multiple apps, because we are hosting all those apps within our app. The Paytm mini app is a very nice and innovative example in our marketing also, that you don't need to download all those apps, because then payment is the one element which connects all of them, and we are able to connect them. And then we can say that, okay, you can come inside, develop, add value, and let the user try your product. So so I would like to just close this point, like, okay, one app which can be
Abhinav, if I was to ask you, that question I had, which was that over the last 12 months, from a marketing standpoint, what is the big change that you see in the market? Not just the volume. We know the volume, right? It's exploded. But in terms of consumer behavior, is it anything that strikes you?
See, the movement to digital has become more stronger.
Yeah.
So when you have less people, when you are going out in the market to acquire, so our main, like when we plan any marketing campaign, or when we are thinking about marketing, so digital is a strong player where we have to give more focus to digital, because movement is restricted. People are not coming out. So all the advertising medium which you use, they have become a bit less effective. So in the online medium where the video consumption is going on, people have more time in the home. So the whole thing has gone a bit more digital. So digital has been playing a role. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Abhishek, what's the most striking aspect of change that you've seen in the last 12 months?
So to that, I think the number one change that I see in this entire UPI payment apps ecosystem is the shift from where I mean probably 6 to 8 months back, when P2P transaction used to make up around 70 to 80% of all the UPI transaction ecosystem, and now that has shift. I think that has majorly shift, with almost to an equal split between P2P and P2M, and all my B2C marketing colleagues would be able to answer that in a better way. But that's one major shift that.
No, so sorry. Are you saying that from it's moved from person to person to B2C? Is that what you're saying?
And to people. So P2P and P2M, these are the two categories where we usually classify UPI transactions in.
All right.
And earlier, majority of this used to be P2P transactions, and even though the penetration to merchants has happened already with a lot of players, but Paytm leading that earlier, then PhonePe coming in and probably taking over a lion's share there as well, and then BharatPe also coming up and taking a good amount of share. The transactions shifted very, very recently. the transaction volume has really gone up towards P2M as well. And of course, the entire UPI ecosystem is growing and developing at a very rapid pace with double-digit growth month over month, and even last month. The value and the volume was around 2.7 billion transactions, with a massive value of around roughly around, I think, 5 lakh crore rupees of worth of transactions was done. I mean, these are massive and gigantic numbers when you look at the government support on it. And even the P2M growth is driven by the zero MDR thing that came up, and the entire ecosystem is now booming. And of course, it becomes really convenient for the user. And I can't think of any other country where you can just walk out and probably you'll shop through your mobile phone. China could be one of that, but I was in Dubai last month, and I just couldn't do it without card or cash. And here, when you compare it to India, UPI or probably mobile payment volume has overtaken the card transaction volume, which speaks really I mean, good things about the infrastructure that government has created, and probably all the private players that have come into.
Sure. Okay, Shalini, hi.
Hi, thank you for having me here. I think a lot has been spoken in terms of the rapid growth on the fintech space, and we all know as the ecosystem is growing, we've been seeing phenomenal transaction volume and users coming in. But what I want to do is step back a little bit and think about what does it mean to being meaningful and relevant to everyone, right? We know that the growth has been coming from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. We know that we've seen the early adoption happen, and then there is this next 100 million or the next 200 million that comes in. So the lens as we think about is, what does this mean for the headroom opportunity? So take the lens of the mobile internet. Today, you've got about 500 million internet users who are using the mobile internet. Right. But compare that to the digital payments. You only have 1 in 3 transacting on a monthly basis. You take this lens.
Could you repeat that? How many transact? Can't hear you.
Hey, can you hear me?
Sorry, can't hear you.
Hey, can you hear me now?
No, I can't hear Shalini. Sorry.
Shalini can't hear you.
Shalini, hi. Yeah, no. You'll have to go off, I think, put off a video probably.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yes,
okay,
please.
Great. Okay. So I think we've seen this rapid growth that's been happening, and we think by the end of this, another year or so, we'll get another 70 to 80 million coming into the fold. But what about the next 200 million, right? What does it mean for them to join this ecosystem? You put the gender lens on this, and then you see similarly that 40% of women are accessing the mobile internet. Not a good number, but at least it's getting there. It's getting better. But the same thing you see over here is that only 1 in 5 are actually doing digital payments. And when we see the demographic cut about this, it's only the younger women, the 18 to 30 years that are coming in, right? So as a marketer, what do we need to think? We need to think about what are the 4 principles that help the current users and the next set of users. The principles remain the same, the nuance changes, right? We have to win user trust. You have to build with inclusion. You have to develop frictionless experiences, and you have to extend engagement and flywheels. What Abhishek said, and what Abhinav said, there are P2M transactions that are happening. There are more use cases, but beyond transactions, there's something else that we need to start doing, deeper engagement. So I think that's where we are looking at working towards and trying to think more deeply around this.
Okay.
Your point around what's been the biggest change that I see in the last one, as new users come in, I think the biggest barrier is going to be on trust in terms of how, as we scale on UPI and as we see this, we need to be as reliable as cash would be, right? And that means that you need to get trust in. We'll talk more about it, but I think that's one big barrier that I think about.
No, in fact, I think I had a question about where will the next wave of users come from. So I think you touched upon that. We'll come back to that.
Sure.
Yeah, Udit, please.
Yeah. Thanks, Srikanth, and thanks, afaqs, for having me over here. I think I'll start off where probably, Shalini actually left, very similar numbers, because I also come from telecom. 500 million smartphone users, probably 150 to 175 million, digital financial users. And yes, you still have huge pie of around 300 to 350 million users who are still not transacting digitally. I think that's one big pie which is left. Second thing is, if you look at it from a smartphone angle, now more than 75% of the smartphones in the country are sold which is 32 GB and more, and more than 45% smartphones are with 64 GB and more. So that basically tells you, the capacity and the RAM and the ROM of the smartphones increasing, and users want to actually experiment. Third thing is, as and when a current user actually, upgrades to a newer smartphone, he gets into a much stronger, higher device, which is capable of delivering higher function. So, from that point of view, just having 1 or 2 apps or probably 100 apps, or now moving probably to a 200 apps, I don't think it's difficult for a user to do that. Third thing is, what I would say is, in terms of the penetration, if you look at the penetration of the financial products in the country, insurance is hardly 3%, mutual fund probably would be 10 to 11% right now. So, from that point of view, there is a huge scope of growth in the country, and, digital provides a ready access for everyone to come and do it. Third point, which I would probably want to put in is, there are multiple consumer segments as of now in the country. You have, SMEs, you have traders, you have merchants, you have students. There are multiple services which they're looking at, which is payments, savings, insurance, investment, loans. Okay, so from that point of view, I think the ecosystem is huge. The opportunity is huge, and and that's where I probably slightly disagree with Abhinav. Because I think a user can have probably a multiple apps looking at multiple, different services which he will probably want to have. I don't think any one organization would be able to solve all of this at one go. Coming back to the question, what is the, big change which probably I have foreseen in past 12 to 18 months, and which at Airtel Payments Bank we're trying to address. I would rather go with what Shalini is probably saying. I think 2 things. One is trust, and I think that's where the safety aspect of the digital transactions come into play. Because as the digital transactions are increasing phenomenally, so are the number of frauds. So the frauds in the country have increased digitally by almost 400% in past 10 to 12 months. We did a research wherein we found that almost 40% of the users either have experienced a digital fraud or at least know someone who has experienced a fraud. So I think from that point of view, trust, via safety becomes a very, very important part. Second is terms of deepening engagements, which again, I think Shalini and Abhinav, and in fact, Abhishek also spoke about. You have to give multiple opportunities to the consumer. What has actually accelerated, during COVID is now people are realizing the value of investments and deposits and insurance. So if you see any of the insurance or deposits or investment industry, they're actually growing phenomenally right now, because people are suddenly looking at this as something which will sort of from a futuristic angle point of view. So more and more products along these lines will probably help deepen the engagement with the consumer over a period of time, and that's I think we are trying to do at Airtel Payments Bank. And I think one case in point was the Airtel Safety campaign, which we did. Second is the number of products which we have.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Then, okay, I have a question actually. When I was reading up quite a lot for the session, and one of the things that strikes me in conversation is whenever we think of digital payments, I think the first thing that comes is about paying online. Okay? But I would like to break this. Now I'm throwing it open to all of you. Oh, by the way, before I do that, I must invite the audience to post any questions that you may have. You've got a great. If you don't have questions for this bunch of people, you won't have questions for any bunch of people on digital payments. You have the occasion, please ask the questions, okay? I'll take the better ones and pose them to our panelists. So the thing is, what has happened as far as physical transactions go? I mean, digital payment at point of sale. What have been the big changes that have happened over the last 12 months? I'm leaving it open to all of you, because that is something I'm not very, because actually the fact is much of the physical infrastructure was also closed, right? Over the past year, it was open intermittently. and yet digital payments were rising. What has happened in the offline world with digital payments, physical stores, restaurants, all of that over the past 12 months? What has changed? Anybody could take it, please.
Yeah. So I think, Shrikant, I would probably give the first part. I think that the fellow, panelists can actually come into play. See, what we have seen, especially from a digital merchant transaction, is in spite of the lockdowns and everything, we have seen a huge growth over there. I think a couple of reasons for that. One is, I think the no touch thing which people want to do, the contactless payments which people really wanted to do. In fact, the other day there was a person from where I was buying a banana, right? He basically said that, why don't you do the, QR payment to me, right? So he is not the one who is willing to actually accept cash from when I was trying to give it to him. And which is a good thing because I think the digital payment will probably rise, and I think that's probably has given rise to it. Second is I think the open loop QR code which has got implemented in past 18-24 months. Now a consumer can actually scan any kind of a QR code and do the particular payment rather than the closed loop system which was earlier there. So I think that has also given a rise to the entire ecosystem. I think these are the two things which I've seen, and third thing is what I've seen is there's a huge chunk of users which are coming, especially in the digital merchant transaction from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. I think as and when the distribution is going over there, more and more merchants are getting expanded over there. That's where the major chunk is now coming in. The earlier ones are actually doing more transactions, and the newer ones are coming in from a tier 2, tier 3 cities.
Okay, Abhinav, what's your feeling about the physical digital payments?
Yeah, I think in the last, if we look at probably from exactly 1 year from when the whole lockdown scenario, everything started. So there were more people who felt it as a necessity to adapt to it. So a lot of adaptation also happened in the last years, because before people were more reluctant. Now they thought there is no option, and more acceptability of UPI and these terms becoming more famous. And so people accepted it. The first thing. Second thing, many things went online, and then they just didn't go online. Maybe many of the people who have not shopped online in ages, they probably shopped online. Many people who never traded online, they started trading. So our market also saw a lot of new investors coming in the last 6 months and 7 months. So all these transactions are adding up. If you were not, you were cooking food yourself, you were going out to eat, then you started ordering online. You start ordering grocery online, and then again people had a bit of this notion that we have to store stuff because then we have to do it for certain days. So even the normal orders were a bit bigger, so even if the online deliveries were happening, and so we saw the adaptability go more into the people. So more into the people from the bigger cities, they started buying groceries. Probably people from the other smaller second, third tier, they also tried to test the water. They ordered something online, probably on Amazon or any other Flipkart or something. So everyone started adapting to it. And we saw this as a Paytm Mall also started doing grocery and these kind of things. People were not ordering. And so this increases the transaction and acceptability. Yeah.
Okay. Abhishek, Shalini?
So I think a lot of it, most of it is kind of covered by what Abhinav and Udit said. I think the only thing that I would add over here is the fact that businesses pivoted quite quickly. I think they were able, there was struggle. There was immense amount of pain and struggle as they were trying to navigate towards the new normal. Right. But think of the fact that they've now started doing delivery behind shuttered doors. Right? That's the business that is happening. So it's shutter on and off, but there is this whole concept of how I can continue building up this business. That's one that has happened. And there is this, not completely online, offline, but there's this little merge that's been happening that I will be partly online, partly offline, right? It could be a combination of messaging apps that you may use. It may be a combination of the messaging apps plus a payment app will help you to be online. Not necessarily do you need to be on a website and then have a payment link, right? That was the traditional thinking of how you need to be online. Social plus a payment app kind of brings in these mergers that are happening. So they're starting to expand their consumer base. They're trying to continue with their current user base. So that's been happening on the physical front. Right. The other one is the fact that we saw the essential services actually pick up as the first most use case. I'm sure that would be able to tell you a lot more on the mobile recharges. I think that was the first use case we saw pick up the maximum, right? Even before groceries, the mobile recharges, they didn't want to live without their data, and they immediately started recharging online using a payment app, in fact. So that was the first one. So you think about it today, we've seen this huge growth that's happened where 1 in 2 actually do a mobile recharge. But think of the same use case on an LPG. Even despite all of the lockdown issues, you still see them, only 1 in 100 are booking an LPG gas. And so there is always this opportunity to kind of do more. There are some places where we've pivoted and worked well, and in some places there's still a headroom to grow. So I think that's two things that I would want to bring out from a physical payment point of view. And of course, a lot has been said that people are starting to get comfortable. Once they get comfortable, they start adapting new user flows. It could be starting from buying my essentials to buying apparel to buying investments. So that whole journey kind of continues.
Abhishek, let me toss you the next question. One of the things is, I think that both of them brought it up that, now the transactions are beginning to come from smaller towns, right? How do you see, so one is the numbers, of course, okay, that more people are coming from smaller towns than before. But how is that consumer different? How is the nature of the transaction different? Is it just smaller? Is that the only thing? How much smaller? And how is the consumer behavior basically different? What do you need to do to keep that consumer, to get that consumer to come more often than somebody in a bigger place, bigger city?
Right. So initially, all my fellow.
Sorry, could you speak up, please? Sorry.
Yeah. So initially, when we started penetrating these tier 1 or tier 2 towns, we did not see a lot of variation in the consumer behavior.
Okay.
So in the transaction volume or value, it was plus minus 10 to 15%, and
Okay.
it was quite in the similar range. But as we progressed gradually towards the evolution of and penetration in the metro cities, the value of every transaction now differs significantly to the level of 30 to 40% on an average when it comes to value per transaction. To keep these guys engaged, I think earlier it used to be quite a lot of cashback schemes were given to the user to make them stick to the app. But right. I think now those days have gone, and I think a lot of people have now in the category itself have come up with their own loyalty programs of some sort, giving larger than life consumer experiences and promising them much more than just a transaction relationship of a cashback. We also run a loyalty program linked to cricket, which has worked quite well for us in terms of making users stick to the app.
Right. Would anybody else like to respond to the question, please? Or how is the consumer in the smaller town? How is her behavior different from that in a larger city? People who have been on it longer.
Mm-hmm. I would like to add something.
Please.
So I would like to take a special case study for which one of our subsidiary company, Paytm Money, which has been doing in recent days. So we don't have to just see if the value of transaction is low or bigger, the new set of users which are coming. We also have to see the kind of services. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. So we also have to see kind of services users used to get. So if you are living in a bigger city, then you have options when you go around in your bank. Somebody will stop you to ask you for buy a mutual fund or a share or anything like investment kind of thing, which was only existing in the bigger towns. And so during the lockdown, people had time in their home. So we went and we said, it is very simple. You can just buy it online. And so they started making the investment decision, and which were much higher value. It is not that only second tier, third tier, when they will come, they will do a lower value transaction. No, they are doing. So once they get the facility, they are doing, and that consumer is also exactly like any other user from the bigger cities. It is just the way how you reach them and how easy it is for them to understand. And this will make the change. Yeah.
Shalini, you brought up the issue of trust, right? Would you like to expound on that?
So one, when we think about users, we don't think of them just from a geo split. I think we think of them from a demographic and a psychographic split itself. Right. Trust, again, is multi-layered to everybody. I think when you think about The first level of trust is that, will my transaction go through, right? Will it not decline? Because that's the whole hassle that they're facing, So the trust has to be there as the first thing that is most important. The second thing, when you think about trust, it's also the trust, will the app, because can I trust myself? One is to trust the app. The second is, can I trust myself on the app? Will I make the right decision, right? I may make a mistake. I may enter something, and that will cause a problem that is happening, right? So that's where we think about trust in two ways. One for yourself, one in terms of how you do it. The third in terms of trust is trust in the information that's being shared, right? So there's privacy that is there. So these are your three things, and it kind of changes. This whole behavioral texture changes the base the user is, right? So I think that's where we think about trust. It is about the platform. It's about making you trust yourself and having that financial literacy. And the third is, of course, that the user trust that you have with the information that you share is being used in the right way. So for us, that's how we've been thinking about trust itself.
But this thing about the third point about can they trust you with the information? Is that a big issue even among people who are coming in for the first time and spending small sums of money?
I think we need to care about it.
No,
right?
of course you do. But I'm saying that, does it seem to you that consumers worry about that in the first instance?
Well, if you think about what's been happening in the recent past, and you see some of the conversations that have been happening, there is a conversation that is an ongoing piece in terms of, can I trust the app? There is this whole multitude of things that are happening, and it's happening with data. So I think it's important to have a privacy first approach. It is important because that will win the user trust, because then they will be able to make decisions and be comfortable with the decisions they make. So I think that's where it is. It's educating them, and it's also to enable them to feel empowered with what they're doing.
Okay. I'd like to now, when I look at it from the outside, I have a sense of, my goodness, it's great, it's a booming market and all that, but from a marketing standpoint, and how do you differentiate your brand from another? It must be pretty tough. I would think from the outside it would seem that way. So Udit, would you like to take that up, or am I looking at it all wrong? And is it actually much easier than it seems to me? I can't hear you, Udit.
Yeah, I think Srikanth, I think you're well on point. There are a multitude of apps, and when I look at the consumer apps, there are a lot of, in fact, four of us are, probably three of us are sitting there, for our consumer to basically choose from. I think differentiation has 2 or 3 legs, which we are at the bank looking at. One, I think I already spoke about, is the angle of trust and safety.
Right.
I think that's a paramount lever which we really want to push in, because the consumer has to feel safe when he's doing the transaction, both that he's giving the information to the right party and giving the money to the right party. I think that's one. Second is that his information will not get leaked, which I think Shalini touched upon in terms of the privacy thing. And being a telecom and a bank, I think that becomes paramount for Airtel to actually go and do it. Second for us is in terms of the customer service, because see, you will keep on getting more and more new users onto the foray now. And these users probably might not be as well read, as digital savvy, as educated as the first 150 million people who have actually come onto the platform. So you have to make them feel very, very comfortable with the customer service. It's it's not something that they will call up a call center and it will keep on ringing for 5 minutes with nobody there to help them out. Either do a customer service on the app, which is self-intuitive, which for some of these consumers might not be as simple, but then you probably have a call center where they can actually call them and get their query answered. So we have kept a turnaround time of not more than 4 hours for any customer query. Apart from that, from a product design point of view, I think the design has to be so intuitive right now for these set of consumers. That they can come and just experiment on their own. See, they might not have the financial literacy of first 150 million users. So it have to be very intuitive in that sense. I think these are 3 levers which we are trying to do in terms of differentiation for the consumer.
Okay. Would anybody else like to talk about the travails of a marketer in this space? Or would you rather be somewhere else like that?
I would like to add something. Yeah, so it is also, it is almost the same. So it is very true that where you are coming from, for sure, we all look the same to you. But we also need to see that there are very fine differentiation, and we need to even, and I think some the users use all these apps heavily and they know the differentiation. So you need to understand that what are the sources and how we make it easy for the user to use it. What are the sources you can use to put in your money through the system? So like, let's say Paytm has something called, Paytm has multiple sources. You can do something in Paytm with wallet. You can do something with EMI. You can do with Paytm credit card. You can do it with UPI. You can do it directly with your bank. Whereas many of the major players, so they use only the UPI system of getting in the money into the system. But when we talk about design, trust, comfort, and so these are the things we want to give users a multiple options that wherever you trust, whichever technology you can understand, use that. So if you're not sure about should I connect my whole bank account online and then I'm not sure what will happen, then please go with wallet. Just have 500 in your wallet and use it as you want. If you don't understand the technology of UPI and the wallet, please go and use your credit card right away. And if you just want to get a loan from a shopkeeper, they also can issue you. So it is not just about connecting the same bank account everywhere, but having multiple and easier source. And then it will be a clear differentiator that we don't tell you how you can pay us. You just choose how you want to pay us.
Abhishek, you came from you came from IKEA, and before that you were at IPL. And then when you came here, what struck you as the marketing challenge in this space?
Yeah, I think, the biggest marketing challenge was to differentiate the brand in an already crowded category. And but I think it was easier for us because we were, when we started, we were only into B2B payment space. So it was pretty much easier for us to carve out our own niche for us. And I think all my colleagues spoke about a lot of features that are different in their own apps. But to add a little bit on that, people also, I mean, a level above that is the positioning of the product, and that a lot of players. I mean, I remember PhonePe does it really well. They position it and they target all the young and youth segment, and they position it in the convenience space where they just I mean, with the latest campaign, her PhonePe hai. They have executed wonderfully well, and they have actually appealed to a bunch of youth audience in that particular segment. For us coming into the B2B space, I mean, it's pretty easy for us because no other app in India at that time was actually talking to the shop owner or the shopkeeper guy, specifically telling him that dude, we are the only people who are here to make your life a lot easier, and we'll do whatever is possible to make you grow, to help you grow. If you will need payments at 0%, we'll give you that. You want to accept cards at 0% MDR, we are here to help you with that. If you want loans, you just click on your mobile app and we'll offer it to you. And in terms of other services that we actually present for the merchants.
Okay. Now I'm going to start taking questions because there seem to be quite a few of them. I'll just throw them to the panel. Any of you can pick it up. So the first question is from Sutej Vora saying, what is the uninstall cycle of the user after downloading an app? I mean, typically, in how much time would they uninstall if they have to uninstall? Anyone could take it. It's just a rough indicator. Okay, not for your app. Let's say for the industry standard. Let's say. Anyone?
I think I would have probably some rates on that, but I'm just going from an intuitive consumer logic on it, Srikanth. I think somebody has to uninstall the app. He will do it in first 10 days is what I would feel.
Okay, cool.
Either it is of use to you or it is of no use to you.
Okay, cool. That's good. Okay, Tushar Bhoge asks, when will we see digital transactions without the use of the internet? I think we already have this thing, no? This USSD, if I remember. Am I wrong? USSD is without the use of the internet, isn't it? You can use it, feature phones for payments, right?
Yeah. So I don't know whether this would surpass the internet payments or not, but this, for the bank, it's currently, let's say, around 10 to 15% of our overall digital transactions right now.
It is via USSD. That's unstructured supplementary service data, right?
Right. Yeah.
I had to write it down. I couldn't remember it. So, actually, is it really as much as 10-15%?
In fact, when there was a, let's say, internet ban on GNK, I think that was the service which really, kept the lights on for the West.
Okay.
Or the UT.
There is one question which I would have liked to ask, but somebody called Sakshi has asked, how does the formation of the NU, that's the national umbrella entity, right, impact the industry? Or is it too early to say? So NUE, for the audience, this is the Reserve Bank of India is trying to create a rival to the national, what's it called? The National Payment Corporation of
NPCI,
India. That's right. So bids are going on just now. Would anybody like to take it? What might the rise of an alternative to the existing system?
You want to take it, or you want me to start and then you can probably take over from there?
Would anybody like?
Yeah,
please.
I think Shrikant, see, this is too early actually to comment on the NUE is what I would basically, because the entire set of things what needs to be done under NUE is still very hazy in terms of the overall platform.
Okay.
What I feel is in terms of what it can probably do is drive a lot of innovation in the retail space. I think that's where it is being thought of from. But a lot of companies who are actually even vying for it in terms of taking that platform, they themselves are not very clear what exactly is going to happen into that space. So definitely it's going to be a rival to NPCI, because that's what the RBI is wanting to envisage, that you don't want to put all the retail payments into one particular platform.
Okay, so here's one. How does it look? So there's a question from Digvijay Singh, but basically the question here is that how does the industry look like for digital payments with cryptocurrency as a method in the coming? I mean, is it somewhere in the near future? Is it very futuristic just now? What role will cryptocurrency play in digital payments? Abhishek would like to take it. Abhinav?
Sure. So I would say payments and probably this special payments category is a highly regulated category that we operate in.
Right.
Now in India, the government is still probably thinking or probably deciding upon how to handle or probably how to regulate cryptocurrencies, and they are going to come up with their set of thoughts and probably their set of guidelines, their set of bodies on that. So till the time those are set, I still feel there's a long way to go for cryptos to become mainstream here.
Okay, Abhinav, here's a question for you. There's Mitesh Baheti has asked a question. I'm going to rephrase that. Wanted to know about the next 200 million users. Shalini, you could respond to this as well. So what I've just added one bit, which is that are there particular states where the wave is going towards smaller towns faster than in other states? Are these southern states? Is it a particular state, a set of states? What? It can't be happening equally, I'm sure. No?
For our data, the north shows a bit of difference. Like Bihar and all are growing a lot. During the lockdown, they grew without like any extra effort, and so adaptability is coming into those areas. So this is just a direct answer. Like if there are certain states,
No,
we saw something grow.
Is that a reflection of where Paytm is strong, or is it a reflection of where that these states needed it more? I mean, which or both?
Because we didn't change anything. We just saw the change in number. So it will not be just there. We didn't see any of our very strong effort there, but like extra effort, like we do normally national activities, and then we see certain states just pushing up. Yeah.
Shalini, would you like to take that?
I think, like Abhinav said, and what I've said in the past, previously also, I think we need to think about the next 100 million users as the person who's also in your home who's not taken on the digital payment. Right? I think that's critical because we keep trying to box them into these places. It's about how you adopt the first smartphone, and then how do you adopt certain apps when you open up your smartphone. So I think that's going to be critical. The other way to think about it is genders are going to start changing, right? So you are going to get more women. So what we've been seeing is that as and when you start seeing this opening up, you're starting to see more women, but you're seeing younger women take this on. So it's going to be important to try and understand them at a psychographic profile to see what this means. And that also means how we need to innovate, right? When you think about digital payments, you think about simplicity of a digital payment. But for the next 100 million or the next 200 million users, simplicity of a payment will not be relevant. It will be in different ways, right? Because what is simple for them? Simple for them was cash. In the same four principles that we see for digital payments, what will that mean again for them? What is going to start becoming important is how you help them feel empowered. I think that's going to be important. I think what's also going to be important will be the use cases that they unlock. Like I've said, I bring back this point because to Abhishek's point, I think one of the hard problems that he's trying to solve in the merchant is that how do you solve for current accounts, right? So there are going to be these unlocks that are going to start happening. So once you solve for one set of accounts, and you have to solve for current accounts, and you have to start solving for joint accounts. Once you start fixing these fundamental issues at the platform level, you'll start opening up new users. That will happen. The second thing is they get comfortable, and you get, like I can't stress enough about the importance of them getting comfortable with what they need to do and trusting themselves to what they need to do over there. So use cases.
I found that thing very interesting. You know, I never thought of it like that. That it's fine. One thing is to trust the app, and the second is to trust yourself with the app. I think there's such an interesting way of looking at it. You know, so there's one question here from Ashish Agarwal saying it's the POS QR code availability seems to have been driven by the fear of COVID. What suddenly led to the POS SQR code explosion? I'm not sure I understand the question, but what is SQR?
Yeah, I can try to answer.
Yeah,
so these are the normal the machines you see in the shops where you swipe your card. These are the POS machines which he's talking, and so there has been a lot of digital QR codes coming in. So the one you see, there is static QR code every shop has, which is like standard for that shop, and you can scan and pay. But in the digital QR code, you can also attach it to a transaction, exactly what was sold or what transaction did happen. So it also helps the merchant to maintain a better report of the inventory. And it is also a touchless thing. So it is not lying around in your shop every time. And for every user, you generate it instantly and then user pays it. And so I think people think it is more secure, or so this is the.
Okay, that must be the reason why. Okay, so actually we've run out of time, but I've still, there's so many questions. I'm trying to just take them quickly. Okay, so just from Herat Talati saying, I recently became aware about NPCI's indication to levy charges on UPI transactions. Will this impact the growth of the market if this happens? Would like to take this, please? Anyone?
Well, I'll take that. Of course, it's going to impact the market in a big way. But I really doubt government will do that, even though a lot of lobbying is going around to probably bring those MDR charges back. But of course, the reason why the government actually made MDR zero was to promote digital payments, so that people start adoption of the digital payment apps at a faster rate. And it makes sense for the merchant. I mean, why would he start paying a few bucks on the transaction charge? He'll just simply ask the customer to pay in cash. If he has to pay something out of his own pocket, he'll not accept it. So merchants are a little smarter consumers versus the overall consumer set. So it's going to impact P2M transactions in a big way.
Okay, that's okay. This is Dr. Rajneesh Mehra. In the current scheme of things, that's regulatory. How does a payments app bank make money when everything is free? Second, if it does make it chargeable, will there be the same kind of potential that we see now?
I think I will take this up.
Please do. Yeah.
I think there are 2 or 3 ways, especially for a bank like us, to make money. One is deposits. Once you keep the money here in the bank, of course, that money goes out somewhere. We put it in maybe a government bonds or something where you earn interest. That's one. Second is normally on loans, but payment bank are not allowed to lend. So you don't take that arbitrage of loan over there. Third, which is going to be the biggest stream of revenue, I think for all of us, are the cross-sell products. So you do a lot of investment products, insurance products. So you have a user now, you can probably sell him an insurance, investment, loan, whatever you want to probably sell him, and that's going to be the biggest revenue stream. And that's why even if you have a zero MDR, the complete solution which you'll probably give to the retailer or a merchant is to start making money from.
Okay, I think we've already exceeded our time by 5 minutes, but I have a last question for you, which is that if you, okay, two quick questions, right? One is that if you had to put money behind, if there are 3 ways of increasing digital payments. One is by getting more people to do it, getting them to transact more often, and the third is to get them to do larger transactions. Where would you put your money? If you could only put it on one of the 3, which one might give you the best returns? It's an unfair question, I know it, but still.
I think it's important to grow the ecosystem. So I'll always say user growth. I think it's extremely important.
Yeah, I think I'll second Shalini. It's more people.
Getting more people. Okay. Yeah. Abhishek, Udit?
I think it's probably the same, because see, once you get a consumer behavior change, then the second and third thing will automatically follow.
Okay. Udit? Please, I hope you'll say something else, no?
No, I actually reply to that. I think Abhishek has to now reply.
So I'll put my money on
okay. 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 Now, this is absolutely my last question. If we were sitting together, the 5 of us 2 years from now, how would the discussion be different from what it was today?
I think it will be different from simply in terms of what we are seeing as innovation that's changed, right? 1 year back, if you sat with us, we would all be talking about P2P payments. Today, we're talking about P2M payments. Right. Tomorrow, we may be talking about disruptions in the financial sector, which is happening from credit, right? So there are going to be disruptive trends, and there are going to be adoptions that start, making that change. So there are knock-off effects that we're starting to see over there. I think the next change will be in terms of disruption. We're already seeing that with credit in terms of how new fintechs are starting to look at the cross-sell services, an indication of what this means. And adoption of these cross-sell services will kind of lead into new behaviors and new kind of formats that consumers will interact. I think the online offline is going to be very, very seamless. So I think that's going to be another one. You can't think of them in silos. You'll actually see them merge and work within these spaces. So, yeah.
Okay, please, each of you.
Please. What we would be, I think, probably talking about is how neobanks are actually disrupting the entire framework of the traditional banks. I think globally they have done that with Revolut, Monzo, Chime, where they have been able to, really disrupt the traditional banking system over there. I think in India it is just started, and it will definitely make a very robust entry in the next couple of years.
Great, Abhishek.
I would say it's really hard to predict what we would have. What we would be discussing. If you look back in 2019, if we would have hosted a similar discussion, we would have been discussing about wallets and 2021. So I feel I look towards the future with a lot of hope that new technology will definitely come into even the UPI space that we all exist right now at this point.
Abhinav?
Yeah, and so I think just taking a note from Abhishek's point that we were talking about wallet probably 2 years ago, and I will re-stress that we will talk about wallet again. We will talk about in 2-3 years again, because we already discussed about zero MDR. So we are worried that some MDR charges will come in. And if you look at wallet, just look at Paytm wallet, which is as big as the biggest credit card issuer in India. So if you see SDFC, how many credit card it issues, there is much number of people having wallets also in the same. So we have a financial instrument. So I think even in the recent ads, we spoke about a company and their recent ads, they are stressing again on wallet. So if the UPI is a zero MDR business, we'll come back probably to wallet again.
May you be right, Abhinav. Could you just hold on
Yeah.
for 1 minute, please? Could you play the AV, please? Before we say goodbye. Yeah. Debashish, Abhinav.
न पाबंदी हो न कोई हद हो तो बस खुद बनाई सरहद हो। ये मुहिम है परतों में छिपे हर सच की तलाश की, सियासत पर रखी पैनी नजर और आंख की, खबरों की दुनिया में एक जिम्मेदार आवाज की, जुर्म और जुल्म के खिलाफ हर बेबस के लिए इंसाफ की। जब कोई हद नहीं इंसानियत के लिए जज्बात की, जब कोई हद नहीं खुशियों और ख्वाब की, तब कोई हद क्यों हो नए नजरिए और बदलाव की। तोड़ के हदों के ताले नए सपनों को पाले, बांधे सबको एक धागे, आपको रखे आगे। एबीपी न्यूज।
Okay, Udit, Shalini, Abhishek, Abhinav, thank you so much. I enjoyed myself so much, really. Terrific. And audience, thank you so much. And thank you so much for your questions. Sorry we couldn't take all of them. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.